want to neglect it completely. But all our patients, they get, my daughter-in-law is a specialist in measuring garments, and she does a wonderful job. And they are bandaged, they are measured, and then before they leave home, they get one garment made to measure. And this then fits perfectly, and they get, I will come to it later, they get the one which is giving bad feelings to the patients when they feel it the first time. It's the flat knit, it's a hard wear, but very good one. I will explain it a little bit later. So they go home with a compression garment. And then we teach them not 10 ways of how they could do respiratory therapies. 1 or 2 ways of doing it is enough, because when we tell them or teach them 10, they won't do any. And the same is with kinesis, with exercises. 1 or 2 exercises what they can do bandaged at home, and skincare. I think patients are up to a certain extent happy when they can do something to their edema by themselves. This is helping themselves. Needs a lot of energy, I understand. But we want to put this energy in them that they can help themselves. And now we have different material for bandages. All these things my poor students had to learn and still have to learn. This is the short stretch bandage, and I just want to show you the difference. This is a textile elastic, we call it. It's very little, cannot be really extended in comparison to the other one. That is long stretch. Has a completely different application and a different effect on the limb. Those with low, this one has a low resting pressure, and I will a little bit later explain to you what means low resting pressure, but a high working pressure. And the short stretch bandaging, they are always put with whole padding below. And you can have any, this is, there is some, I think it's called Celona. We have foam which we can put into the washing machine, and then they can, and our patients take it home. And the administration is to all edemas, all lymphedemas, I should say, need the padding below. And the exception is edemas due to inactivity, yes. They should not have the short stretch. And the long stretch, they have a low working pressure but a high resting pressure. And this has to do with the recall force. Recall is the strength with what the bandage wants to pull back to its original size. Now when I do this, you can imagine that there is a strong wish and a strong force to go back to this original length. So this means when I put this on my arm and I put it too strong, I get immediately blue fingers and cannot stand this very long, because it's constantly pressing on this arm, and this is very unpleasant. So the working pressure is the pressure you feel in the bandage. When it is stretched, then of course there is, and this gives in, there is no working pressure because the bandage gives in. And the resting pressure is the pressure when you put the bandage on. And this bandage, the short one, short stretch, I put on with a certain stretch, but there is actually no recoil force. This does not want to go back to its original size. because I can pull it very little, you know. But it sticks, it stays. When I do exercise in this bandage, it doesn't give in. So when my muscle becomes thick and short, it presses all the vessels which are in between veins and lymph vessels against this strong bandage, which does not give in. As when this is on, it simply gives in when there comes a pressure from inside. No effect in that case. So there is a big difference between these two bandages. A short stretch has a high working pressure, which wants to say when they do exercise in this bandage, they will have a great result on the vessels. But they have a low resting pressure, of course, because they don't have no recall force. And with the long stretch, it's just the other way. They have a high resting pressure because they constantly want to pull back, but a low working pressure because they give in when there comes pressure from inside. And there are some basic principles. Yeah, never cause pain, never cause reddening or any injury or so. This is really dangerous, and the patient immediately would say, this is not good for me. I cannot tolerate that. And sometimes they are even right when they get a bad bandage put. Then check, and this is for the therapist, really check every single layer about the pressure. It would be awful if you put a high pressure, a high pressure here and a low pressure here. This would interrupt the flow. The pressure has to go from high to less, from distal to proximal, up to the armpit, and in the leg the same thing, if it is the other way around. So when we teach self-bandage, which is absolutely necessary, that patients can bandage themselves, we have to check whether they do it the proper way. Because when they bandage the wrong way, so they better don't do it. And also, please, when you get a new patient and you ask them, do you have a garment? Yeah, I have one. Does it fit? Yes, yes, it does fit. Please put it on before you come to me, but have it put on 2 or 3 hours before. And then you check. You will be wondering what you see as a well-fitted garment. I really speak from experience. And this is a little bit the obligation of the therapists. They have to do many things for their patients. And check the pressure after each layer is, of course, we put many layers on. So when one layer becomes too heavy, the patient has the opportunity to take off. Like when you peel an onion, you peel one layer off, and then they say, oh yeah, that I can tolerate. And then they peel another layer off because they cannot stand it. So sometimes we have 4 or 5 layers on one arm when they are bandaged, and they like it. And once they understand that the layers help them to reduce the edema, we have to stop them. They want it firmer and firmer. And okay, this is also for therapists. Fix each bandage with strips of tape and not with, I call them mother-in-laws. It is these things, do you know them? They are awful. A little wound can produce cellulitis for those patients. And this is awful. It is forbidden. They should not even touch it and not think of it. Do it with strips. I'm really serious about these things. We had it all. I speak out from experience, you know. And then the application, yeah, of course, cellulitis, we call it erysipelas. It's a very feared, complicated.